If you ever had a second chance, you better be thankful. If you ever had a second time around,
man, I've been through it, I lost out and I'm faced with defines wrong. Feel no hope, bad thoughts choosing to die, go home. When I was sitting up on that Greyhound, my mind went through these zones like you got none. Lost everything, is no good, feeling alone. Hey, pockets had no dollars, life didn't make sense. How did I end up back where I started, what did I miss? I went from condos to pop's house, on calls, now bus routes. And the one person who had the key to my heart took it and checked out.
What up? It's your boy Paul P. I serve God. I'm not God. This is just my opinion. And welcome to another episode of the Nothing is Something podcast, baby. Man, we got a special one for you guys today. Today, we have a man here with an incredible story. Super incredible. Like, I knew he had to come on here and talk about his story, man. One that I thought was so important that he had to come here and bless this table by telling this story on Nothing to Something podcast. You know, today we have here the one and only Johnny Chang, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you.
Man, appreciate you too, man. How you doing today, man? Tell us about your day.
Good, man. I just came from another podcast, so I'm double dipping today.
Man, yeah. And you came from the valley, right?
Yes.
That 101 freeway, man. That's a killer.
It's death, bro.
yeah. No carpool, ain't nothing. You just gotta, thug it out.
Exactly.
So, Johnny, here on the Nothing to Something podcast, we like to get your Nothing to Something story from the beginning to where you at now. So with that being said, let's start from the beginning. So you from San Gabriel Valley, right?
Yes.
So what was it like growing up in that area as a child?
It was pretty hectic. Back in my days, there was a lot of like Asian and Hispanics in that area. So I was, it's right next to East LA. It's more on the east side, right? So it was pretty crazy. There was a lot of drugs, gangs, violence. And just a lot of culture shock in that area. So very, very poverty stricken when I was growing up.
Wow. So did you grow up with both parents in the household and everything?
Yes, I did. I had both my parents, my father and my mother. They're both immigrants from Korea, but we're actually Chinese. So my grandparents ran away from like the Chinese Communist War.
Wow. Okay. So what was it like, growing up with both parents? Like, what was your relationship with your mother, your father, and everything like that?
So relationship with moms was just regular. I mean, she was a Buddhist, so fairly like religious and just a calm soul. My father, though, he was an alcoholic, so he just, beat on us, just a typical Asian household where father runs everything, mom's submissive, and that's just how it rolls.
Wow. I mean, it was kind of like different. Like, I'm not going to say the abusive part was there, but when it came down to, my grandfather, he went by those old traditional, rules and everything like that. They had a lot of kids, 18 kids, and everything. Wow, yeah. My grandfather was a pastor, and when you come from a background and family like that, old school traditional way, the woman more submissive in the house, the father is more aggressive and everything. Was it kind of like that, or a little bit more strict, when it come down to your background and everything?
For my family, it was more strict.
Okay.
My dad was just like kind of winging everything. I mean, he did have like a set type of thing, but it was very impulsive and emotional. So like he would just show his, one emotion was mainly just anger. He was just angry all the time. He never told us I love you. He was just more like, do what I say or else type of thing, So I classify that a lot of the times as like a dictatorship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. What about siblings? Did you have any brothers, sisters, or anything?
Yeah, I had one older brother. He's about like almost 2 years older than me.
Yeah. Wow. So just you and your brother, no sisters at all?
No.
Okay. So now getting into like your childhood and everything, let's say around like 8-9 years old, growing up a little bit, would you say you was like a trouble kid, or did you kind of stay out of trouble?
No, I was a straight troublemaker. My mom would straight up call me troublemaker. In Mandarin, there's a saying for monster, so she would call me like little monster.
Wow.
I was always stealing. I was just getting into stuff, man. Like I was really enamored by like, I guess, just the gang culture, because I would see kids around baggy jeans and all that. So even when I would go to school, elementary school, they had like a dress code, but I wouldn't even follow the dress code. I was like 7-8 years old at the time. So yeah, I always hung out with people kind of older than me too, so that probably had a little bit of an influence. But yeah, I was just a troublemaker, bro. I started with stealing. I was a straight kleptomaniac.
Wow, that's crazy. What would you say, you know, like, of course, growing up in my environment, you know, I come from Watts, I come from the streets and everything like that. Yeah. And I know in my environment, we saw a lot of that. Right. So it's like, okay, look, one of the homies down there, he doing that, he ditching, he robbing, he stealing, whatever. I'm gonna do it too. Was it that for you? Like, what made you want to go into that direction? You came up in a strict parent household. What made you go in that direction?
I think just the fact that because I was getting beat, I wasn't able to like stay at home often. So I would try to stay outside, you know, all the time. And I grew up with a lot of people in those Section 8 apartment housing and stuff like that. So, yeah, I seen them stealing. So naturally, you just do that. I think it did have an effect on me, just me getting beat at home and just not wanting to go home, trying my hardest to stay out as late as I possibly could without getting beat again. So I had to like balance that as a little kid. And when you're out on the streets, or you know, just even in the apartments where kids are just running amok, like you see crackheads, you see, you know, all these different people, then you start to kind of see that type of behavior, and it becomes like you become part of that basically.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And I mean, you as a kid, like I'm already thinking about it. Like I already know of, like, you know, in fact, it happened a couple of times, you know, growing up, you know, especially in my teenage years in my grandfather's household. We knew we was gonna get our ass beat. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You know? And I could tell, you know, with the household you came up in as well, like it was some of the same, you know, things that were going on. So what made you like be bold enough to say, you know what? I'm staying out, you know, at 11, 12 years old.
Yeah. You know what? I couldn't really get home, and there was like spurts of time where my dad would be drunk, so he wouldn't really care. You know what I'm saying? Like there's times where he's just chilling and doing his own thing. So I kind of was able to fill that out as a kid because that's still my father. So I knew like, okay, there's times where I can't, like how much I could push the envelope, if you will, right? Yeah. So I kind of like had that sense as a kid, but yeah, there would be times where I would get beat so much that you do also get to this position where you're like, you know what, just give me the ass whooping. Like you just get there and you're like, I'm gonna do this, I want to do it, I don't care, like I believe in myself, I'm gonna trust what I feel, and I'll deal with it later. And it just, you get to that point, you know, and even though at a young age, that's where I was.
Yeah, wow. But you did have, like, even though you felt like that, you did have the fear in your father though, right? Was that there, or did you get to the point when you started feeling like that, like, I don't even have fear anymore, I don't care?
Nah, I was still always afraid of my father, you know, to keep it real. But it gets to a point where it's more like it's weird. It's like you're angry, but you're also fearful. It's like a mix kind of thing, and then you just get confused, you know, because it's like you get beat up and then you go out on the streets and then you're like, man, I hate them, but it's almost like I took the anger out on other people, and I wasn't able to do it to my parents, you know, to my father especially. So yeah.
Wow. So, you know, moving on a little bit, I know eventually later, you know, around like 10 years old, there was an incident that led to you getting jumped and everything like that kind of changed your life. Can you kind of like tell us about that situation?
Absolutely. So, I was walking home one time. We had just finished school, and this little car pulled up on me, and you know, they basically banged on me. I didn't know that at the time what that was, but they pulled out some Hispanic people, and they were representing their neighborhood or whatever, and then I just remember getting punched, and then like getting punched again, and then I just started getting jumped. And they took everything. I think my pocket was ripped, took my shoes, all that. And then what I remember was going home though, I was more fearful of going home. You know, I was still trying to like understand what had happened, but I was more like, dang, my dad, I don't think he's gonna believe. Like I just knew that he was gonna make me explain, and I never had that relationship with my dad because I would always answer in one or two words. Like I never even had a full conversation, a full sentence with my pops. So I know I gotta explain this, but I gotta explain it in a way, you know. So when I got home, my dad noticed that, you know, my backpack was gone, you know, my shoes were gone, and you know, I had a little bit of like a little blood here and there, little welts here and there. But he was like, "What happened?" And I was like, oh, you know, these kids, I didn't know the word. There's no term for getting jumped, right, in Mandarin. So I told him in my native tongue, I was like, some kids came out and beat me up, basically. And then he was like, when are you going to stop lying to me? Like he just, he was like, there, cause I guess he just didn't understand that. Like, who would just hop out and beat up a 10-year-old? But you know, being from Wise, being from different areas, like that generation, people would just be fighting. You could just be walking and people just want to beat you up for some crazy. At least in the San Gabriel Valley, it was like that. Yeah. So yeah, you know, and he didn't understand that, and yeah, he took me in the room and he beat me up. Wow. Yeah, and then at that point, I really solidified the heart that, you know what, I can't trust him anymore. Like, I can't trust my mom either, because it's like she's just gonna follow everything he says. So I just made that determination. I remember like crying in the room after, and I was like, I'm never, ever, ever, ever gonna let this happen to me again. Yeah. And then when I made that decision inside of my heart, like, I just was like, at the same time, I was like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. I'm not doing homework. I'm not doing nothing. Like, I'm gonna I'm thinking about how am I gonna bring a knife to school, sharpening a nail filer and all that, like, bring it to school, because we didn't have access to knives and stuff like that as a kid. But like, I'm gonna protect myself at all means, because these people are not going to protect me. And yeah, it went crazy after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and I, from you saying that, I'm like, yeah, that's probably like a culture difference, because, you know, yeah, coming up where I came from, you know, you was getting your bike jacked, everything, you was getting whatever, you know, and you know, I go tell my moms, jump in the car, we're going to find your bike. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, because, you know, this is what goes on in that neighborhood. Right. So I could definitely tell there probably was, you know, a culture difference and everything like that. So, you know, after that situation and everything, you know, I know you say you kind of just start going into a different direction in life, you know, but what eventually led you to want to join, you know, a gang? And so young, you was 12, right? And you first joined. What led to that happening?
I mean, at that point, there was actually a lot of people that I knew were already in gangs, even though they were like 12 years old, 11 years old. They was already hanging out with people, you know, and a lot of Hispanic gangs in my neighborhood, they're like that, you know, they're basically born into it. Their uncles, cousins, all that, right? So I had noticed their culture, and then I had seen that influenced our neighborhoods too, like my gang now, right? So I seen them riding around, and they were putting in work on people, hitting people up and all that. So yeah, I got hit up. I was just walking one time again, and they hit me up, and they were just like, you know, where you from, you know? And I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, I don't know what that means, you know? And they're like, what gang you from? And then they pull out the strap, you know? It was a little pea shooter, a little deuce, but still, you know, I was like, man, I froze. But it was weird, because after, like, I just said, like, no, I don't gangbang, they put it away, and then they were just like, all right, you want to kick it then, you know? And then they let me in the car. Wow. And basically, like, I just started, you know, basically making my rounds with them, you know, like getting to know them, and, you know, they were explaining different things, you know, they call me this, they call me that, just, it was crazy. And in that environment, I felt like these people had money, these people had weapons, these people had, like, protection, they had it all, you know, and you're 12 years old, so you're just like, man. And, you know, I actually had a heart that, like, you know, I these people could protect me too from my pops if it really came down to it. Wow. You know, so I had started to just, it was instantaneous that I adopted them, or I wanted them to be my family. I didn't say it right off the bat, but I could feel that. I was like, man, I want to kick it with these people. Yeah. So after that, every day I was longing to hang with the homies, and I felt like that was that love that I wasn't getting from my actual household, you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, that's what kind of propelled me into that lifestyle.
Wow, yeah. Wow. So eventually you joined the gang and everything like that, just from, you know, you was building a relationship with them, they was building a relationship with you, and now you are in the gang and a part of the gang. Yes. So after fully joining the gang, and honestly, I just want to say this too, and I think this is something that, you know, people probably don't recognize or understand when you come up in situations as a kid. You know, I always say, what saved me from really joining the gang was I had so many uncles who was around me who was like, nah, that ain't what we do. When it come down to us, we are our own gang. You know what I'm saying? Right. So even though all my homies was from Grape Street, because I grew up in Watts, you know, and I went to school in Inglewood, so my homies over there was from Inglewood family. So I would have definitely, I'm just being real, you know, I would have definitely been a part, you know, because those were all of my homies, you know, but having that kind of like structure, you know, of men, you know what I'm saying, that was like that, you know what I'm saying, that kind of like saved me from that. So I could see how you was like, you know what, I don't have that at home. So, you know, these are my boys over here, that's who I'm rocking with, you know.
Exactly.
So kind of going, you know, forward and everything like that, you know, you joined the gang. Did you have to put in work immediately?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
In that time, like everybody was putting in work. You know, they're still put-ons. People was getting jumped and stuff like that. So, yeah, we had to put in work, and it went from the smallest things to the, to crazy things. So we had to do it. We had to prove ourselves, and yeah, that's essentially what I end up getting caught for. Is my first crime essentially. It was a robbery / kidnapping, and luckily it was a group of us, but I was the youngest one, of course, and I basically was nudged essentially to take the rap, being that I'm young, and I don't think they expected me to get the time that I got, but basically they gave me 4 years YA time, and yeah, it was just crazy after that, bro.
Yeah. If you don't mind, kind of like going into it a little bit, like what was it, like a store robbery, or was it like a house? Like what kind of situation was it?
It was more like just a regular robbery. Like we were robbing some dude who was at that time, I mean, he didn't even have that much money, but to us, any money more than us was money, right? So he had some stuff at his house. I think he had some family members that owned either a liquor store. I kind of forget, but what I do know is he had money, and we kind of just like impulsively like picked him up basically, and that's how it turned into a kidnapping. We didn't know, taking him and in the car and all that was gonna be kidnapping, but that's what we did. We're like, okay, you got stuff on you, but we want you to take us to your spot, and then that in turn made it a kidnapping.
Wow.
So it was really off impulse. You're 12 years old, you got a couple people that's maybe like 16 to 18, so you're not thinking much, and you're like a knucklehead, you know what I mean? So we didn't really plan nothing. We went off of like impulse.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, man, you 12 years old kidnapping, and you a kid. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's crazy, man. But it's just where your mind was at. You was like, whatever it is for the squad, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you was like taking a rap for everyone and everything like that, and fighting this case, at that time, did you feel like okay with that? Did you feel like, oh, my boys ain't having my back, or did you feel like, hey, this is just what I got to do? It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I was afraid of the big homies, right? So like they instilled that fear in us from a young age, but they also were very nurturing. It was weird. It was like they were respected, and I also had this agenda where I knew, because I had big homies who went to prison and stuff, and they got a lot of respect. So it was like I had like different mixed emotions, but I remember very clearly that I wanted to like obviously not take the rap. There was that heart, but then there was also like, bro, but if you take this, you could basically like elevate your status, which I knew I was twisted as a kid, but that's what they were kind of telling me too, like, if you do this, bro, like you're solid, that's when I heard the word, what does solid mean, and all, and they were teaching me basically, you know, and yeah, after that they were like, you don't say nothing, we kill snitches, this and that. So all that was like that fear aspect, but I actually never had a heart like, oh, I'm gonna tell on my homies, because I also volunteered. I was there, I was with them, you know what I mean? So I can't really just be like, these dudes and whatever. So I remember the cops saying, like, if you just they try to turn the youngest ones always, because it's like you're scared and this and that. Oh, you're gonna get raped, and they would say stuff like that to me, but before that, a lot of my big homies were real big homies. They were like guiding me, and they were like, they're gonna say everything to you. They try to break down everything to me, and I was thankful for that. So I was able to keep it kind of solid.
Dope. Yeah. But then the crazy thing to me though about this was your first case, right?
Yeah, bro.
And you ended up in YA? Yeah. I'm like, what made them like throw you right in YA like that?
Because my at that time my gang had a RICO. So like, they pulled all of that up, and they were like, you know what, this kid, even though he's 12 years old, they were pulling up different cases. This kid did this at juvenile murder, and this and that. They're from CHING, and this and this, and so they were breaking it all down, and they're like, don't let it fool you. Like, these are Asians, but they're known for murder for hire, and just all kinds of stuff. And they were like, this kid is not he's a predator, basically. He's not a kid, basically, and I didn't know nothing about that. So I was like, I don't know what they're why they're doing this, but they basically buried me, bro.
Wow, that's crazy, man. And I say that too because I'm from LA, so I never ended up on Y or anything like that. But one of my best homies, I remember at around 17, 18, I was working at Walmart. He just got out of YA, and everything, and then they did like job placement for him, and he was working at Walmart and everything. But he would tell me all these crazy stories about being in YA, all type of stuff, just the craziest shit you would ever hear. You get what I'm saying?
For sure.
So, you first arrived in YA, and at this time, again, you 12, 13 at this time?
Yeah,
or
12.
12, 13 years old. what was that experience like in the beginning? Let's say you first walk up in there, you arrive in YA, like what was your thoughts and feelings and everything?
So the first place I went to was SRCC, right? Southern Reception. So that's kind of like a reception center, right? And it's somewhere where they house you. They kind of like, it's like placement basically to see where you're going to go, right? So from there, you know, I caught a lot of fights immediately because, you know, in YA, the difference between YA and county and jail and prison is YA is actually gangbanging. So when you get in there, you have to gangbang, you know, and you have to stay 10 toes, they call it. You have to fight. And so people will press you and you can't hide behind a car. You're by yourself, essentially. So, yeah, I was fighting. And then from what I heard, too, there was like a rumor going around at that time, like early 2000s, where if you fight, you're getting sent to Nellis, right? Which is like at that time the worst, right? It was in Whittier, and that's where all the rapes was happening. And we all knew there was like YTS, Chad, Nellis, like these different places that are really crazy. It's all YA, but those three kind of stuck out like as the craziest ones, you know? So sure enough, you know, I fought, saw an enemy, whatever, fought, and then that was basically my first like couple nights there was just fighting. And after that, you just, all these mind games. You get laced up. Like, people tell you, okay, so this is what you do, this is where you go, this is how you handle yourself, yada, yada, yada. And it's your own race, you know. For me, it was some Vietnamese dude. But essentially, you know, from that, I get sent, get sent to Nellis. And it just went even crazy. It was like a whole nother level after that, you know. It was just, all kinds of stuff, bro, like from rapes to people getting stabbed to just fighting was an everyday thing, you know. So I mean, that was whatever, but just the mind games, bro, like talking about gangs and you know, like you gotta line stuff up, you gotta fight this dude and basically fight the Ronfly, which is the car, like fight him, his homie. It's just like constant fighting, bro.
Wow. And when you say, you know, get into it with like enemies and ops and stuff like that, was that just other Asian gangs or was that just any gang that was up in there?
I mean, you could technically get with anybody, right? But most of the time it was with your own people, you know, because you know, I'm not like, you're from Watts, like we don't have beef with, you know what I mean, those people. So you're usually beefing it within the vicinity, right, within your neighborhood. So yeah, I would beef with, you know, Asian Boys, Black Dragon, with all these different gangs that were our enemies at the time. So yeah, you get in there, it was pretty much on site, bro.
Man, crazy. I know too, you talked about like literally like at a young age laying in your bed at night experiencing like hearing, I don't even know if seeing, but you know, hearing somebody, you know, getting molested, a boy like around your age and everything like that.
Bro.
What did that like mess with you mentally? Like, you know, hearing that and everything?
Absolutely.
Did you think that was coming at you?
For me personally, I didn't feel like it could happen to me, but I feel like it was obviously it was traumatizing, but it was just I don't know, like it was just something that was, the first time I remember hearing that, I just was like, what was going on? Like, I didn't even know what was going on, actually, you know. But then it came to me because I'm like, oh, I heard that people get turned out in YA, you know, and this is actually what's happening, you know. So yeah, you see that stuff and it's just like, it's crazy. But to me personally, I never felt like that would happen to me, because I was a person who, like, I just kept fighting, bro. And I feel like those people, there is a specific type of person, I'm sorry to say, that gets preyed upon, you know. And I'm not saying I'm all big and bad, but those people were the ones that weren't fighting, that was letting people take their stuff, like just I don't know, just being like kind of like, you know, like a bitch basically is what they would call it, you know. So yeah, you could see that, and then you see people who come in who are like, I don't care how old you are, you 16, I'm 12, I have to fight you, you know. And then they respect you. It's weird, like after that they just respect you, even if you're getting beat up, like they respect you, you know. Whereas there are people who are like trying, like they'll step up to them and then they'll get scared, or you know, somebody pulls a knife and they won't fight or whatever, and then right then and there, everybody's, it's not just like one person, that person that's punking them, everyone starts taking their things, bro. And it's just like a predatory mindset where it's like the best way to describe it is like piranhas, you know, where they like chew a piece of flesh and then everything just starts going at it. Like that's literally what happens in YA. You know, in prison you can hide behind the politics, honestly. You know, if you're a person who ain't never fought and, you know, first time in prison, you could hide behind the car because there's politics. But in YA, you have to stand 10 toes. If you don't fight, like you're just gonna get eaten alive, bro. You can't hide behind this or hide behind that, bro. It just doesn't work.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you like see that like happen with that person who you saw go through that after that situation? Did you see, you know, everybody kind of start, you know, treating him like that after that and everything?
Absolutely.
So yes, wow.
Not just with that situation, but just people in general who won't fight back.
Yeah.
They would just get preyed upon. Literally, they would get stripped of everything, commissary, clothes, whatever. They would take everything from them.
Yeah.
Just different people would just come.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy, man. So, you know, I heard you mention it on the other interview, and I just want you to kind of like go into detail and explain it to people. So, if you don't mind, talk about the 2-second takeoff rule that, you know, that used to happen in YA and everything.
So it's an unspoken rule. Basically, you know, if you feel disrespected, you have to take off. You know, if you wait too long even and you hesitate, people see that. So it's just basically like you're constantly like going off impulse, going off emotion. So, you know, I was saying it's a 2-second takeoff rule, but people who understand that, they know like, oh, that's true.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody calls you a bitch or a leva or whatever, it immediately you just got to take off. You know what I mean? And there's no talking. You just go. So it cultivates this mindset of like, go. Like, I'm not going to take no disrespect. Like, it's a knucklehead mentality, basically. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. Crazy. Yeah. So you spend the whole 4 years in there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and now you getting out around 16 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you getting out. I know you kind of like went back in quickly, but you know, before we get there, so you get out. Where did your life go after that? What steps did you take next? Did you go straight back to the gang, or what happened after that?
Straight to the gang. Yeah. After that, I got out, and you know, I was on this arrogant tip. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I hop out and. Now you're like kind of crazy, so when you see other people, you're like, man, these people ain't crazy as I am. So you're trying to like prove, you know what I mean, and prove that you're crazy. Not you don't need the status anymore, but it's like I'm gonna show you guys what I learned in there. Like you wanted to kind of show that off, as crazy as that sounds. So that was me. You know, I hopped out and I'm like, oh, where's these enemies? Like, let's go. Let me show you guys how to do it. Like that type of vibe. And it was just evil, bro. But we didn't know. I mean, we felt good doing it. We were like, you know, you guys don't know what's going on. Like, I went in there, and then that's even to the point where the big homies were like, bro, you got to chill. Like, just because you've been to YA, don't act like it's not prison. So I heard it crookedly, like, oh, okay. So for me, the next step is prison. You know what I mean? Like, that's when you reach that level of, you know, gangsterism or whatever it is. So, yeah.
So what was you out there doing that even made your big homies, the OGs, that's like, okay, yeah, put in work. Yeah. What was it that made them even look at you and say, bro, you know, chill out, you know?
Just doing reckless stuff. Like, they didn't want you to crash out. You know what I mean? Like, my big homies were still, like, very, like, organized at the time. So they were like, okay, yeah, if you get somebody and there's a reasoning behind it, yeah, that's fine. But you're just crashing out just to crash out. Like, that's stupid. They would call it stupid down. You shouldn't be stupid down. Like, you should be down, but you shouldn't be stupid down. You know what I mean? And they would tell me, and I was just stupid down. Like, I don't care. I'm going to do this. Because I had so much rage in me, bro. I had so much, you know, I felt that I had that victimized mentality. Like, if you're happy, I got a problem with it because I'm not happy. So just like people who would be happy, like I would be a real short fuse with them. You know, like, man, you don't understand. I would always say that people don't understand me, and then I would just go based off of that. Yeah. Wow.
No joke. Yeah. Now, when you first got out, you know, I'm pretty sure your mother and everyone like that was happy, right? Like, what was the relationship with your parents when you first got out?
When I first got out, they were happy, but like my father was, you know, trying to like, I guess not guide me, but trying to tell me what to do. And at that point, I just had no respect anymore for authority. Like at that point, I would say I had no more fear for my dad, you know, after going through all that and this and that. So I just always understood it as, look, they don't understand. Your parents are never going to understand you. They didn't grow up here. They're not in the gang life. They're not even your family. Like, they just don't get it. So they just had you, and then, you know, they beat you, and that was it, you know. So you got to take care of yourself. And that's just what my mentality was. And in YA, too, anyone who's done a good amount of time in YA, they teach you this, where they say, forget about your family, because you're going to max out, which means, you know, just because you get 4 years doesn't mean you have to do all the 4. Usually your parole dates are usually like half time or whatever, like 2 years. Yeah. But But most people who are in YA, they usually max out because like you're fighting all the time. So you're getting these write-ups called level Bs. You're getting all these like just violations. So it just adds a lot of time. You know what I'm saying? So you get maxed out basically. But so you know, if you got 9 years, like they may say, okay, you're gonna go home and whatever, but most people don't make that. They actually do the 9 years, and some people actually catch murders in there, catch a lot more time. You know what I mean? End up going from YA straight to prison type of stuff. So, they told me basically forget about your family. You know, and for me that was easy because I was like, I don't have a family. Like I was more missing my homies, if anything, than my parents. You know, so.
Wow, no joke. So when you got out, you went, you know, you was living with your homies and stuff like that too, basically.
Yeah. Well, I had to go home because then, you know, you still have the probation stuff. But in terms of like, was I home? No. Yeah. Of course not. You know, I was just doing my own thing.
Got you. And your main thing that you was doing was mainly like robbing and stuff like that, right? Okay. Also, was you like taking drugs? Was you into the drugs and everything like that too?
I was.
What specific like drugs was you know?
So at that time there was meth and like ecstasy.
Okay.
Yeah, and then of course weed, you know, was always around, but not the type of weed that is nowadays. It was more like Reggie, right?
yeah. That had the little seeds in it. Right. Yeah, you know, I'm from that area, man. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Okay. So what was it that, like, you know, like I said, you wasn't out that long, but what was it that got you sent right back to jail?
I did a shooting.
Okay. Can you kind of like talk about it a little bit?
So you know, it was just over some dumb stuff. Like, you know, it was like a road rage incident. It was a type of like a freeway. It wasn't really technically on the freeway, but it was kind of like on the on-ramp type of thing. So it was, you know, classified as a freeway shooting. But yeah, that's what happened. It was just rival gang stuff, or at least I don't know if it was a rival, but it was some person who I thought looked like this. He was throwing up gang signs, whatever. So I just started shooting at him. Wow. And I used that's what I'm talking about, like how stupid I was and how impulsive I was I was driving my own car type of thing. Like, you know what I mean? So immediately they sent the warrant. Like, of course, you know, whoever witnesses, you know, called, got the license plate, all that. So yeah.
How did y'all both even know y'all was both gang members? I'm like trying to think like, how did y'all even know that? You know?
Well, I mean, you could tell.
Okay.
Back then I was bald headed, and you know, the other dude was bald headed. He was tatted down. You know what I mean? Wife beater, and you over here throwing gang signs. I'm throwing gang signs, and I'm like, all right, whatever. You know? So
yeah. Wow, crazy. Did you hit him? Like, did he get hit?
No, I didn't. Yeah. Okay. I hit the car, but.
Got you. Okay. So how much time did you end up getting, you know, for that?
Yeah. So at first I was facing like 19, and then, you know, I ended up taking a plea deal, right? So it was 85%.
Wow. Yeah. So you got 8 of them.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, wow. So now this ain't YA no more. This is prison. This is
big leagues.
It's real now. You know what I'm saying? Right. So, you know, you get your sentence. You arrive in prison. What was that like for you? You know, when you first arrived?
Best way to describe it was culture shock, man. Like you get there and YA is again like gladiator school. So you're like, okay, if I see somebody, it's on site, right? So when I get there, I see enemies, and I'm like, oh, all right. But then they're like, no. That's not how it works. You know what I mean? Like and they started to lace me up again. Like, this is what it is. They gave me the rules and regulations to everything. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't like that. You know, I was like, man, forget that. You know what I mean? Like, these dudes shot at this dude. Like, you know, I had that animosity. But I didn't know how to program, bro. I'll be honest. Like, for the first year and a half, I was just like a knucklehead, man. I was like, you know, rebelling, and I was just like, just getting write-ups and just being stupid, you know. But in the end, I was able to see that you know, some of these people were actually very respectful. Like my enemies, they would send like care packages and stuff, you know. And I was like, dang, that's crazy, bro. Like, these are people who we have beef with. And right there, I was able to kind of see another angle, like another side of people. Yes, you know, I'm on this side and you're on that team, but we're the same. Actually, you also had an alcoholic father. You also went through poverty. You also got picked on. You also grew up in the same area. We're literally mirror images of each other. We're just represent different gangs. Yeah. And that's when I kind of started to calm down a little bit and program correctly, find my routine and all that stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Just to take a step back just a little bit, you know, when you was, you know, first locked up, you first went to prison, you know, and like you said, you kind of was like, hey, I'm not feeling, you know, that we have all these rules and structures. Did you ever put yourself in a position where you did something and your OGs wanted to DP you or anything like that?
I mean, yeah, I did.
You did? Okay.
Yeah,
what was it?
That one I can't really, speak about, but yeah, I basically took off on somebody when I wasn't supposed to, and yeah, I got beat up for it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, after that though, I bet you was like, okay, right. I got to get my shit together. You know, I got 8 up in here. You know, this is real. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So even though after that you learned the system and everything like that, you started to kind of like feel depressed. You know, in some stints and everything.
Yes.
Can you kind of go into like what was the depression coming from?
Yeah, I mean, at first I thought it was coming from prison, right? I was facing a lot of time, and it did hit me, bro. When I actually went and was in reception and all that, I was like, man, you know what? I'm really facing some time right now. Yeah. You know, and I think it was just that feeling of like emptiness, man. I was like, what is this feeling? Because I'll wake up with a pressure in my chest, and I didn't understand what that was. And I kind of felt that in YA too, but I think because it was so like busy, like I didn't have time to really think. Like I was always on my P's and Q's, so like I didn't have time to actually like be self-aware or assess myself. So I was just rolling with the punches. But when you get to prison, yes, it's hectic too, but there are times where there's like that safe place within the car, within the politics, where you can actually relax and chill. You know, and that's when I took the time to actually think. And that overthinking started to come to me. Like, all right, your homies, you got this much time. All right, whatever, you got to do it. You got to keep it gangster. But at the same time, like, what are you going to do when you get out? And I'm like, man. And I just try to put it, like, in the back of my mind, I'm not going to do nothing, whatever. And, it was like that for the pretty much the whole stretch that I was there.
Wow. And you said earlier when you was in YA, some of the worst stuff you saw was, like, seeing your peers getting molested and stuff like that. So while now you're in prison, was it similar things you saw, or what were some of the things you saw while up in there? Yeah. So you didn't see none of that in prison?
No, that was a no-go. Yeah, that's a no-no. Like that causes way too much problems on the yard, right? So they were like, no, there's no raping, there's no whatever. It's crazy. Yeah, even if you're like gay or whatever, like you have to be on another yard. It just causes too much drama, right? I didn't see none of that, but I had seen a lot of like gambling debt type of stuff that would lead people to get stabbed and things like that. I seen a lot more like stabbings and stuff like that. But I mean, just a lot of DP stabbing, cleaning house, all that stuff. But other than that, it was a lot more like chill, but it did have that air of like tension, because now you're not fighting one-on-one no more. This is like a whole I don't know, the best way to explain it is like it's just like it's just war, bro. Like one person can get disrespected and everyone starts fighting because of that type of stuff, riots basically. I didn't see a lot of riots, but it was always that tension of anything can pop off type of feel. And it was similar to YA in that aspect. But I think it was pretty scary, because it's like now they got numbers, because in YA, if it's just one-on-one, okay, you could size this dude up. But being in Asians, we're not even that much, so you're like, okay, I gotta fight all of y'all. Like that's too crazy. You guys got 700-800 Mexicans to like 60 of us, 40 of us, something like that. And it's like we'll lose. We knew that, but we still had to play that part. We still had to keep it solid and all that. So it was always that tension of like anything can pop off, any little thing.
Yeah. And in prison though, it's less about like the sets and the crews and stuff like that, and more about like the race, right? The culture, like. You black, Asian, Hispanic. So did y'all ever get into anything, any race, wars and everything like that while you was up in there?
Yeah, that stuff I can't really talk about. But basically, yeah, like there was stuff like that. There was race wars, is what I can say.
Yeah, definitely.
On my side, but the gangbanging in there, you're still a gang member. You can't, drop your flag or whatever, but you have to go with a car, your people basically.
Yeah. Okay. Did you ever get stabbed or anything like that? Okay. Well, thank God you did, man. I've been stabbed and it's not fun. You know what I'm saying? The surgery is the worst, even afterwards. But yeah. So eventually, one of your OGs noticed, that you was having a hard time and everything like that, and basically gave you some advice. Do you mind going into what advice it was that your OG gave you?
Yeah. So he was noticing that I was an overthinker. So he was like, you should, and he was a lifer. So he was there for a long time, bro. He was there for a long time, and he was like, what helps me cope with everything is like, you should read, bro. You should read a book and you should exercise. So he kind of like, not him, but one of the other dudes taught me like a routine, his little program. And I started to kind of read, and I had a cellmate who was actually Muslim at the time. So I would actually read with him the Quran and all that stuff, and I was like, yo, this is different. And so we read it like often, he would pray, teach me how to pray and all that stuff. So he would give me that advice that you got to occupy your mind and your time, otherwise you're going to rot away, literally.
Yeah. Wow. And so while you was up in there, you said you read the whole Quran. Did you read the whole Bible too at that time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. That's a lot of knowledge, man.
Yeah.
And you feel like that kind of like changed your mentality. I'm not saying it got you to where you was gonna eventually go, right, with everything, but did that change you, kind of like reading all of that, like in a different way?
There was like some things in parts of the Quran, in parts of the Bible, but like I still didn't understand it. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't clear to me, and I would have questions, and so I think I wanted to pique my interest, but like when I would ask my celly, and it's no disrespect to him, but he couldn't really answer the things clearly, or at least to my standard. So I just did it based off of like I wasn't ready for it. I just did it just because I felt like this is what's gonna pass time, and this is what's gonna, like help me with my speech. And so I wasn't really searching. I just was like reading just for the sake of reading to occupy my time. But it didn't really like do anything for me. I know that sounds crazy, but like it didn't do anything for me.
Yeah. And your celly, what was he? What was his religion?
So he was Muslim,
okay,
and he was Arab. He was Arab.
Yeah.
And they come with the others. So Arabs and those types of people, Middle Easterns, they come with the Arabs. Most of them.
Got you.
Others,
Okay. And I want to ask you too. Your sibling, was your sibling kind of like out of that type of lifestyle, or did he ever like face time, or what about your sibling?
Yeah, he faced a lot of time too.
Okay.
Yeah, he did more time than me. So, but him too, like he kind of got into it a little bit later, like around 16, 17. He was always a good kid. He just kind of got picked on, you know what I mean? And he was getting kind of like phased out by people and just like picked on and singled out. And, so he just ended up joining the same, and he knew my homies. So we all just ended up hanging out, and they were like, bro, I mean, in my neighborhood, the way it is, we have a lot of relatives, like brothers. Me and my brothers, bigger homies, they got big homies, got their brothers, and it's like really tight knit. So he saw that and he kind of gravitated towards that, and so he ended up catching a case too of a different type of shooting and all that, and then he did a long time.
Wow. I mean, how did you feel? Your younger brother?
Older brother.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, so have your other older brother ever like felt responsible, like for seeing the direction that you went in and everything when you was younger?
Not at all.
Okay.
Because me and him were polar opposites. My older brother was always respectful to my parents. It's crazy. Like he was the older brother. So in Asian tradition, like the firstborn is kind of treated a little different than because the younger brother has to respect the older brother. You know what I'm saying? So like I couldn't even call him by his like government name. I had to say big bro. And if I didn't, I would basically get like beat or chastised for that, so and I was like, bro, you only like a year and a half, 2 years older than me. I'm gonna call you big bro, you know what I mean? Like I'm just gonna call you by your name, which is whatever your name is. And my parents would hate that. So he was just always a kid that kind of, in my opinion, got more attention than me. He helped my parents when he was young, and he had good grades. So that's why my mom was always like, you're a troublemaker. You're a monster, because that's why we even had you, because we had a kid like him, and we thought it was going to be the same. But I was more like bad as a kid, man.
Yeah. Hey, ain't that crazy though, Johnny? Like we'll call like the homie big bro, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
To like the brother, you like, I ain't calling you big bro. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy though, right?
Right.
Yeah. So eventually, you end up getting out and everything like that. So you served the full 8.
Yes.
Wow.
8.5, yeah.
A full 8.5. Okay, so eventually you get out, you know, and at this time, what are you around? What about 20? What 8?
23, 24.
Oh,
yeah.
23, 24.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get out 23, 24. Did you jump right back into the gang banging and everything, or where did your life go after that?
To be honest, I didn't. I was like, all right, look, I just spent some time in prison. I just, you know, and at that time we had got shipped all around, bro. We went to, you know, Ironwood State Prison, and then that was already like Arizona border, basically. So my parents, you know, it being far from them, and then when the governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, came into office, he did the prison reform. So he was trying to make California a lifer prison. So he started shipping everybody out. You know, so I went to, you know, Oklahoma, Mississippi, all these. It was just too far from me, bro, and that put a lot on my mind, you know. So I had made a determination, like, I don't want to come back to this place. I'm gonna try to fly straight. You know, I didn't tell nobody that, but that's really what was in my heart. So I speak to, you know, my homies, and I kind of let them know, like, hey, I'm gonna kind of lay low, and they respected it because they understand, like, okay, you just got out, bro, you got to get your foot in and all that. And I was like, you know, it was always on the table, like, yo, we know you got a couple strikes, this and that, you know, it's gonna be hard for you to find a job. Yeah. So if you need it, it's there, type of thing. Yeah. But you know, and I was like, no, let me try it out first. So I was being honest, you know, I was trying to be like a good person, a good, you know, civilian, and mark the box that says, did you know, have any criminal records, et cetera, et cetera. I would explain everything, case, whatever, all that. I didn't get any love from anybody, right? And after that, I just started to feel again that pressure in my chest, like, you're inadequate, bro. Like, look at you, you're scum now. Like, you know, you just nothing, bro. And you should just you like, what is the purpose of life right now? Yeah. You know, so, and I just hated that. I was like, man, so I guess I'm born into this world already messed up, and I'm just going through depression. I can't get a job, I can't lift myself up, and it's my fault. And like, I deserve this, you know. I had that type of heart, but then it was also like, it was like always fighting inside of me, like, man, but I was born in this way, man. I didn't choose. And it just like, and it just made me snowball into like just the deep depression, deep emptiness, deep like void feeling inside of my heart. And I would still hang out with the homies, you know, but you know, it was just this up and down lifestyle. Like, when I was with the homies, I was happy, I was cool. On the drive home, I'm feeling like I'm crashing again. Dang, I'm empty again. Man, I gotta kick it with the homies again. But it's like, bro, it's a Tuesday. Like, what can you do? You know what I mean? Yeah. They're doing their own thing. They're making their rounds. So I just felt that. And and then I ended up eventually going back to, you know, my friends again and looking for illegal opportunities to make money. Yeah. That's what I did.
Yeah, and it's different, you know, this time from when you was younger, because at that time it was about gang banging.
Right.
23, 24, it's about getting some bread now.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And did you have any kids or anything, you know, around this time? Yes. And everything? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have a son? You had a son or daughter?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's really about, I got to get this bread.
Right.
You know, so you started jumping back, you know, up into the, you know, that lifestyle and everything, you know. So what were some of the things that you know, jumped into, you know, kind of like trying to have your life go in the right direction, but you jumped over there? What were some of the things you jumped into?
Just like selling drugs, bro. That was the main thing. I just jumped into that. You know, there was nothing else that, you know, you had to have startup money. I didn't even have like startup money, you know. So the best way to get it was either to rob, and I was like, man, if I do that, you know, I'm like 0-2 for that. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. I'm probably gonna get caught up again. So I tried to just go the safer route, which was selling, and you know, I was doing okay, but again, I was on parole. So there's times where, you know, you're moving stuff in your car and whatever, like, it's very risky. So I always felt like that looking over the shoulder type of thing. And then you got people who is trying to rob you and stuff like that, right? So I had devised a plan to basically rob somebody, well-known drug dealer dude at the time in my neighborhood. And I planned to go to the right of the car, you know, and my homie was going to go to the left of the car. And we were just going to rob him, take him for everything, you know. And as I step to the right, he steps in front of me. So, of course, naturally, I just go to his side, right? And I go, and then 3 gunshots ring out, and this dude basically gets shot. My homie gets shot right in front of me. And, you know, right then and there, I just start to realize, like, man, this was supposed to be me. you know, I'm supposed to die, you know, and yeah, I ended up passing away. And you know, it was just all like a botched robbery basically. And you know, I was just so like, I had that guilt, man, like, man, this was all you, like, you messed it up, you planned it, you did this, you did that, whatever it was, like, you're just an evil human being. So not only now are you depressed and you're lonely and you're broke, you're also an evil person now, you know. And it was just a tremendous amount of pressure on me. And then on top of that, within the same week, my homie ends up committing suicide in county jail. Yeah, and then after that, like a few days after that, you know, my other homie, he's a young little homie, he gets shot in the head, freeway car-to-car shooting. I mean, it was just crazy, bro. It was just death everywhere. So I was like, okay, like, I'm pretty sure I'm a die soon. Like, I just felt that, you know. And there wasn't anyone I could turn to. There wasn't anyone I could speak to. I just had to, like, stuff it inside of me, and I felt like it was just eating at me, you know. So yeah, I was like, look, whether I go back to prison or whether I die, like, I'm pretty sure and this is just my life. And I had accepted that. I had reached, like, I would say at that point, rock bottom in my life, you know. And there's many times where I should have reached rock bottom, but that was the first time I actually recognized that my life is shit. It's nothing, and I have nothing to show for it. And this mentality of, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to only do what I want. I'm going to take care of myself. Like, I was able to kind of step out of myself and see, like, how did it work out, though? Did everything you planned go according to what you planned? No, because you're living miserable. Did you want to end up depressed? No, you hate depression, but why are you depressed? You know, so it was just a lot of this started to develop inside of me. It was like almost bursting out of my heart. It was weird.
Yeah. Wow. And even though all of these things, you know, happen, you know, back to back, you know, losing your friends, witnessing, you know, and I just want to take a step back, man, you know, just to kind of like, you know, talk about that a little bit, if it's okay with you. Like, what was it like you witnessed your friend, you know, get shot and end up dying and everything? You was like right there. What was that like? Did that mess you up? Like, what was that experience like seeing that?
Yeah, it's just the sounds. I remember, like, just everything, bro. And it's something that every time I speak about it, it's like it does rip me open, you know. And it's like, yeah, it was bad, man. Like, I remember, like, vividly that sound. It sounded like you got the wind knocked out of you, but it's just like this it's more intense than that. But the best way to describe it was he just had this, like, tense hardening of every muscle in his body. And yeah, it was basically dying. Yeah. And it was scary, bro. At the end of the day, it was scary to see that and to witness all of that and to still have that pretty much. I mean, we have memories, so it's like it's ingrained in our mind, you know. But I've thankfully learned how to cope with that, how to move forward with that, you know, through religion, through pastors, and just be able to kind of overcome that. But before, I couldn't even be able to talk about it. Like, I wouldn't be able to even think about it. It was just crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, you know, moving down the road a little bit, eventually you did get locked back up.
Yeah.
You know, what was this for this time? You know.
No, that was after.
That was after. So okay, so this time, you know, you out. This is when you was out.
Right.
Okay, so after this situation and these situations occurred and everything, you had a situation where, was it a friend who came and talked to you, mm-hmm. you know, and kind of was like giving you some advice, mm-hmm. you know, because he saw, like, you know, you kind of like going through things and everything mentally?
No, it was my mom, actually. So,
your mom?
Yeah, so okay. My mom at this time, well, in prison, she would always give me Buddhist chants and stuff like that, and because she was Buddhist. But there was a one point, like maybe towards the end of my sentence, like last 2 years, I would say, she was like, you know, when I was short to the house, she was like, you know, you should think about God. And she started talking about church stuff, and I was like, yo, what the heck is going on? You know, like, you like, I didn't have an issue with her being Buddhist because that was traditionally what we were as Asians. Most Asians are Buddhist. But when she started talking about Christ and Jesus and all, I was like, bro, you're crazy right now. You like sip the Kool-Aid type of thing. You know what I mean? So, but she was just like explaining to me how she was peaceful and happy, and she didn't force it on me, but she was like, yeah, you should think about it, you know. But I was like, Mom, I flexed on her. I was like, I already read the Bible 2 times, front to back, and I didn't find anything, you know what I mean? And so when I got out of prison, like, you know, all that was happening. My mom's car, like, conveniently broke down. She was in San Bernardino. She was driving I remember, like, a Camry or whatever, Corolla or Camry, one of those Toyotas, and it overheated on the side of the road. So, you know, and we didn't have AAA at the time, so she was like, you know what, I need you to pick me up, and I need you to drop me off at the church that I'm going to. So, you know, I'm like, okay, cool, you know, that's Mom's, like, I can't leave her stranded. My brother's locked up still at this time, so I'm like, you know what, I gotta do it. So I go and I pick her up, but I tell her vividly, like, I do not want to go in your church. I'm just dropping you off, Mom. You know, because I know, like, a lot of these, at least in my experience, these Christians, Catholics, whatever, they would push it onto me, and that's what I didn't like about them. You know, and Buddhism wasn't really like that. They didn't, like, try to force it, you know. So she was like, yeah, no worries. She didn't even care. Like, I could tell that she needed to get somewhere, which was there, and she needed to translate because she's a translator for the church. So yeah, I get over there, and, you know, I drop her off, and right then the pastor runs out, you know, and he's just like, hey, Johnny, like, good to meet you, you know, like, we got this black bean noodle, right? And in Korean, it's jjajangmyeon. That's what it's called. So it's really, really, like, good. It was my favorite, basically, thing, right, to eat. And I was, like, smelling it. I was like, dang, that's crazy. Like, and he goes, yeah, if you want, we'll box it up for you. He wasn't even like, come inside, you know. Being Asian, we still have that respect of, like, when an elder, say just a doctor or a lawyer or a pastor, somebody, like, they come out and they reach out and they offer the food, like, you kind of have to, like, be accepting of that, you know what I mean? Because that's disrespectful if you don't do that, you know what I mean? Unless it's like your mom's friend, and when you go to their house, you don't eat any of their food, like, you just don't touch it. But if it's somebody of status and they're giving you something, if you don't accept it, it's very disrespectful. Wow. Yeah, so I was like, you know what? I'll just, like, I'll go inside, you know? He's like, oh, really? All right, let's go. So we go inside, and he starts breaking down the gospel to me, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
So out of nowhere, you know, you pull up with your mom, the pastor peep it out. Oh, Johnny over there. Out of nowhere, he didn't know. Did he know, like, your background, history, anything?
He knew that I was locked up, but he didn't know that what he knew that my mom had two sons locked up. Yeah, that was the extent that he knew. He didn't know anything else, because my mom didn't even really know my crime. She was just like, you know, it was like, she didn't know the details of it. She's like, okay, he carried a gun, shot somebody, whatever, like, that was it. You know, she didn't know, like, how long. She didn't, like, none of that stuff. She didn't know, you know. First off, she doesn't, like, really speak English that well, you know, and it was just she didn't know.
Yeah. Wow. So what got you, I know the pastor came and talked to you, but what got you to go inside and sit down and talk to him, you know, and everything?
Yeah, the food and the fact that he wasn't like, you know, come inside and eat type of thing. You know what I mean? It was more like, oh, we have, like, little containers, and I just felt this pureness in him, like, you know, because I've been around all the evil stuff. So when I had seen him, I was like, this guy genuinely seems like he's a genuine dude. Like, he don't strut around like I'm better than you type of feel. He was more just, like, kind of concerned for me. Like, oh, Johnny, thank you for bringing her. Like, man, I appreciate you. Sorry that this, you know, our church is so, he even said, like, I'm sorry that our church has all these events and it's inconveniencing you. And I was like, what the hell? Like, who talks like that, you know? So he was very respectful. And, you know, I was like, yeah, man, like, for him to be disrespectful and then we're in prison and it's all about respect, to kind of disrespect him was just not a good feel for me, not a good look. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to just, you know, go inside and entertain this real quick and be cool with him and then pay my homage and then go out. Wow. But when I get in there, he starts breaking down, like, what sin was. You know, he asks me some peculiar questions like, do you know what sin is? And he says, are you a sinner? Like, do you think you're a sinner? You know, and I just felt like that was such a loaded question. I'm like, I know what sin is. Sin was, you know, evil things, you know. And he was like, you know, and then he goes, so then, okay, you know that, but are you a sinner? And I'm like, of course. Like, who isn't? Like, are you saying you're not a sinner type of thing? So he goes, not so, right? He literally says, like, that's not what it is. You know, sin is not that. You know, sin is unbelief. And he was, like, explaining that to me, you know. And I was like, okay. One thing I had in my heart was, I'm not a pastor, So when he's breaking it down, it's probably smarter to listen to him because I don't know nothing about it. I read the Bible. I didn't get anything from it. I just thought it was a history book, maybe a poem if you read Psalms, you know, like that's all I thought about it was. I didn't think anything about it, but he was breaking it down. And I always had that curiosity of like what certain verses meant. What does this mean when it says, you know, love your neighbor as yourself and this and that. So I was just kind of like curious, but I didn't have anybody to break it down.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was breaking it down for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's breaking it down and everything like that. And to be honest, I'm very curious myself because, you know, my grandfather was a pastor. I come up in a Christian household,
Right.
you know, and everything. Of course, you know, you go out of it a little bit and things like that, you know, but I'm a Christian man, you know, now. So I want to ask, what was it that he said, though, that, you know, you went over some of it, but what was it like that he exactly said that really caught you and it's like, this is where I need to be?
Yeah.
You know, when it comes down to the faith.
Right. So he the way he broke down the analogy of sin was really pure and easy and simple to understand. So he was saying like, okay, so sin, right? He says, you, for example, you're Chinese. He said, did you choose to be Chinese? And I was like, no. He said, if you stop eating chow mein and fried rice, are you then no longer Chinese? And I said, no, you're Chinese from birth, right? I said, yeah, your father was Chinese. His father was Chinese. It was passed down to you. Then he's like, let me open a verse to show you guys, you know, what this means. So he opens it up to Romans chapter 5, verse 12. And it basically says that through one man, sin entered the world. So he says, likewise, right, Adam, there's a man named Adam and his wife Eve. I was like, yeah, I know about that. You know, and he goes, good. So through Adam, he sinned and it started passing down. He said, it's not that you choose to sin. It's because you're born as a sinner, you produce those things. So then he kind of made a joke. He's like, it's not that you eat chow mein because you're Chinese. You're Chinese and that's why you eat chow mein, right? He was like, it was the other way around. And then he goes, people who don't understand this, they become empty. And I was like, yo, like that hit me. You know, because no one ever talked about emptiness, void. They would say depression, but the word that he used was emptiness and void. And that's exactly what I felt. And I was like, I didn't know how to express it, but that's how I felt. Like this hole in my heart, you know. And then, he was saying that, you know, because you're an imperfect person, a sinner, right? He says sin is just a simple way of saying how imperfect you are. So you're an imperfect person trying to be righteous, trying to produce perfection. He says, do you think that you can ever become righteous by yourself, like become, you know, perfect on your own? And I was like, no. And he goes, exactly. He says, amen, right? And he goes, so that's why, like, every religion is no disrespect to them. That's what he said. Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, all Muslims, they all teach you to do good. He said, but Christianity, what we believe in is you can't do good unless there's a blood. Like somebody has to pay for that. Somebody has to do it for you. And that's Jesus. So he said, likewise, your emptiness that you feel, you've tried to get out of it. Making money, doing drugs, women, etc., etc. But it's never successful, he says. But Jesus has to come and do it because it's a spiritual thing. And then when he explained it that way, I was just like mind blown. And I was like, oh, that makes total sense. I never understood sin like that because every other church, even in prison, was like, y'all need to, these are other prisoners who have become ordained pastors, ministers, are saying you guys need to stop sinning. But he was basically telling me you can't stop sinning. There's a difference between you have to and you can't. You understand? So he was like, God has to do it for you. And that just like locked me into him. Like, okay, so he's saying this and I know he's going to basically tell me how God did this and that, you know, and then he starts talking about Jesus.
Wow. That's amazing, Johnny. Really amazing. You know, and you know, a lot of people don't think about that we're born in sin and we inherited it, you know, and everything like that. A lot of people don't think about that. They're just like, oh, I got issues, I got problems, and you know, I gotta figure it out on my own. You know what I'm saying? Or they just like, this is just who I am. They don't think about that. You get what I'm saying? Like, even when it come down to like, you know, a lot of my cousins and family members growing up, we was at some point afraid sometimes to go to church. We was out there, you know, doing our thing, smoking weed, whatever. It was like, man, I'm trying to stay away from going to church. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's the way we thought, you know, because my grandfather was strict with it. He was like what you said, you can't do this, you can't do that. If you do this, you're going to hell. So we was like, damn, you know what I'm saying? Like, man, I can't what? You know what I'm saying? I can't have a girl, I can't, you know what I'm saying? All this type of stuff. So we ran from it until, like you, some of us, including myself, got around, you know, pastors who kind of like preached it a little bit differently, went more into the explanation of, look, this is the way it is, you know, and we all sin. But when it come down to it, you ain't necessarily a person that's gonna go to hell, and you can repent. You get what I'm saying? We all have sin within us. Period. You know, so I could see how that kind of like opens you up to where you're just like, wow. I now understand it differently. And this is something that I need in my life right now. That's amazing, man. So what direction did your life go into after that? You know, you heard that. Now you want to change your life. What direction did your life go into?
So after that, you know, he explained to me about the Jesus thing and how, you know, Jesus came and died for my sins, and that, you know, true repentance is turning away from your thoughts. Right. So he showed me Hebrews chapter 10, verse 14 says, for by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified. He explained what tense perfected was. It's in past tense, meaning already perfect, already completed. And then he said forever means eternally. And then he shows me 17, and their sins and lawless deeds will I remember no more. So he's like, Johnny, this is God saying Johnny's sins and his iniquities will I remember no more. So then he goes, do you think then he could lie and be like, but in 2007 you did a shooting though, you have to pay for that? No, he sent and he paid for that already. He used an analogy, bro, after that of like basically you know, when he was young, he said his father he was in Korea, and he was playing like baseball on the streets, you know, like a little stick and a ball. He hit the baseball and it broke a window. And then he was only like, I don't know, 7 years old, 8 years old. So the guy walks out and he goes, hey, come over here, you know, because he's seen him break it, right? And he goes, where's your father, right? And then he goes, oh, my dad's here, whatever. So he goes to his dad. His dad ends up paying for the window. And he goes, likewise, right? Even though I broke the window, right, my father paid for it. He says same thing with sin. Even though you sinned, somebody, your father, paid for that. And then I was like, yo, like that just blew my mind, you know? So from there, he says, I think you should like stay with us, you know, like stay inside of the church. I'm not saying like live with us, but you should come more often. He said, and then he used analogy again. When you're with your homies, what do? You guys just do hood stuff. You know, you're naturally going to get pulled, you know, by your homies because it's natural. But if you're around people who have hope in their hearts, he said, your emptiness is not a problem. As long as we pour our hope into your empty heart, you'll become hopeful too. You know, and that just made me feel like, man, that this dude actually is going out of his way to actually help fix like the core of my heart, basically, from inside out. And I felt that hope in my heart. I felt like, yo, if God is holding the keys to heaven and he's telling me that he doesn't remember and he's telling me that I'm perfected forever, it just made me move different. So then when I was connected to him, I started to see that the drugs started chipping off, the carrying a gun, all that was just starting to get like dissected. And he never told me, stop doing drugs, stop gangbanging, stop hanging with the homies. He just presented something more hopeful and better, and I naturally went to that. I clinged on to my gang because I thought it was my only hope. I clinged on to drugs because I thought it was my only hope. But then he gave me Jesus. He gave me God, which was more hopeful than anything. And this is where I'm at today.
Man, amazing, man, amazing. So how did that had to like kind of shock your mom? How did your mom feel about that? Just seeing your life change and like, wow, I introduced him to the church, but I didn't know that was going to happen. You know, how did your mom feel about it?
She cried, bro. She was next to me that day, and because he asked me, he said, are you, according to these words then, are you righteous or are you a sinner? And I said, I'm righteous according to because God took care of everything. He didn't fail, right? And then he goes, you're going to sin until you die because you have flesh, right? Like this imperfect thing is just going to mess up. But you got to understand that's not your identity, right? You was in a gang, but that doesn't mean you're a gang member. Like you're still a human being, basically, right? So he said, in your heart, you got to believe that you're righteous. So my mom was crying and crying and crying. And from then on, like it just changed, bro. Like my father started to notice different things about me. Like, yo, this kid is more peaceful. He's not blowing up. He's not putting holes in the wall. He's not with his homies out in the back drinking and you know what I mean? He doesn't carry his strap around anymore. Yeah. He's just like, there's something wrong like with him. He thought there was something wrong with me. And my homies were the same way. They were like, yo, I think Johnny's doing drugs because he's so chill. And he's not like this, and he's not a normal person. So when I tried to preach the gospel one time to my homies, I remember saying, hey, you guys know that Jesus died for that. Oh, here we go. You know, I'm like, he died for you. He made y'all righteous. All right, bro. Like, all right, fool, are you righteous then? I'm like, yeah. And then they laughed. They said, if you're righteous, we're righteous, because you're like the worst one, basically. You know, like joking. But in the end, some of my homies actually come to church with me nowadays. Wow. Yeah. So they see the change, the peace, the self-awareness, all of that, and it all came from God, you know. So,
wow, that's amazing, man. That's amazing that you could like even help change other lives without even forcing them,
right?
Just by them watching and seeing the way that you're moving, and also making them feel like, you know what, you're not a person who is just evil. Right. You're not a person who, you know, God will accept you.
Yes.
The door is open. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks.
And you know what I'm saying? So you could come and change your life in a better way. You know, see what I have in me, you can have that in you as well.
Right.
You was able to show them that with no force at all.
No force.
You know, that's amazing, man. You know, in a lot of different ways. Now, when it come down to the gangs and everything like that, would you say that you're removed from it, you know, fully, or would you say you're still, you know, a gang member, even though you're saved? What would you say in regards to that?
I would say I graduated, right? For me, it's more of like a family thing, because legit my families are in it, you know? So I've never denounced them. But I see them as like people who are lost souls, and like God will bring them, you know what I mean? Because we're pillars, basically. So, you know, who am I to judge? Like, I can't, because I'm not. First off, it says in the Bible, you're not the judge, but I was those people. I went through what they went through, and I'm just there. Like, of course, I don't go to strip clubs with them anymore. I don't go gangbanging with them. But when we do go out, we go to eat, and I just show them love, basically. And that love, bro, it changes them, because they're able to sit and chill with me and be themselves. Whereas before, it was very superficial. It was like, yeah, you're my homie, I love you. But, like, they couldn't ever open up anything. I have homies who open up, like, the deepest, darkest secrets, like weak times, basically. They'll share that and be like, yo, like, this is what I feel, I'm going through this, you know, I had this type of thought, I felt like killing myself the other day, etc., etc. So I'm so thankful for that, you know. But a lot of people can't say that, and I think that's what's beautiful about my gang, my neighborhood, is that they support me. Every one of these podcasts, they're rooting for me. You know, big homies all the way down, they respect that, even if other people don't respect it. You know what I mean? They're like, no, we know what Johnny's about, and for him to do this is not him. There's just no way that it's him, and I feel like that's so glorious to God, because it's true. You know, but yeah, in terms of a gang member, like, no, I wouldn't say that I'm a gang member. What I would say is that, you know what I mean, I'm still the homies and I'm still bros with them, but it's like, you know, that's not really my identity anymore.
You know what, Johnny, and I love what you're doing too, because you know, my goal, and I remember I used to tell this to pastors, and I'd be like, well, you can't really do it like that, you know, because that may make you kind of go back into that, you know, world. But what I love that what you're doing is that you're speaking to the broken. You're like going in the environment of the broken. You know, the ones, you know, rather they smoking, drinking, partying, whatever. You're going in those environments and saying, hey, I'm gonna be me. You know, y'all still the homies, but you know what I'm doing. As long as you respect that, you know, and at the same time, maybe I could get some of y'all to come over here as well. You're doing that. I got nothing but love for that, man, because there's some people just to be real, in the Christian, you know, world that speak against that. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So that's why I was like, man, you know, I need Johnny to come here, because a lot of stuff that I see Johnny doing, that has always like been my goal, you know, when it come down to, you know, letting people know, hey, Christianity and you know, being a believer is not just all about, you know, being some judgmental individual. It's not about that.
Facts,
you know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Like, you know, so it's just beautiful, man, that, you know, you're like, one of them in the forefront, really, you know, preaching that and everything.
Yeah.
And talking about preaching, you ended up becoming a minister, right?
Right, prison minister.
Wow. You know, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, you know, the pastor was saying that, you know, it would be good for us to share, because God used my life, you know, from the beginning to, it's not like I wanted to go to Hawaii. It's not like I wanted to go to prison. He utilized that. And there's a verse that says, you know, what Satan intended for evil, God intended for good, right? So he's like, when you use this your life, like, you can reach people. And I'll be honest, that's when, like, I started to realize my thoughts were really evil, because I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to look weak, you know. I could meet my homies and all that, but just random people who are in prison, who are not even Christian, like, to go there and just share my story, like, that's weird to me. But he told me, you know, Johnny, rather than trying to understand, just accept what I'm saying and you'll see the difference. I believe God will work. So I kind of put down what I thought and I followed what he said. And, you know, when I went there the first time, I remember, like, going to Lancaster, and I was just, like, shocked how much they related with me. You know, like, the fact that I was talking about how we lay up on our beds and we have these negative thoughts coming to us, and it just starts from a little thought, starts to snowball, go crazy. People came up and was like, bro, that's literally what I had last night. And next thing you know, tears is down my face. I feel like killing myself. I feel like I'm not worthy. I feel like I'm nothing. And you hit it right on the head. Like, it's not our thoughts. Because if it was our thoughts, when we say stop, it should stop. But why does it keep going? It's because there's something that's pouring into us, trying to drive us that way. Nothing is happening, but in our minds is racing and racing and racing. Because, you know, and you don't have to be a prisoner to go through that. Most people who aren't in prison also go through that. Anxiety, panic attacks, etc. It all starts from that one thought, you know. So as I was kind of seeing that, it moved my heart, like, man, you know what? I just want to pay it forward, because I know the antidote to what they're feeling in that emptiness, and it is Jesus, but you can't just, like, force it onto people, you know. So the way my testimony works, just like with Soft White Underbelly, I just shared my testimony, whether it's on this podcast, that podcast, and people start to come to the water, if you will, and they drink, right? They're like, man, that's what I felt. Because we're all interconnected through sin. We're all interconnected through the struggle.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, one thing that you're showing is that, and that's why, like, you know, a lot of people are very interested in your story and listening, is that at the end of the day, I feel the majority of people really want to, well, people are really curious when it comes down to the Bible, Christianity, and things like that.
Yeah.
And just to be real, Johnny, you make the faith welcoming. You get what I'm saying? Like, your story, you know, showing people, like, I come from where you come from. I've been the most evil, more evil than what you think. And look at how my life has changed.
Amen.
You get what I'm saying?
Amen.
And that's just beautiful, man, you know, in a lot of different ways. So what are you're welcome, man. So what are some of the other things, you know, you talk about, you know, preaching and, you know, the jails and everything like that. Are there other things that you're working on as well?
Yeah. So essentially everything is just focused on the gospel. So when I'm basically doing, like, speaking now. So people are telling me, you know, to go to Oregon and, like, you know, flying me out to different places that we have lined up, to basically speak. So for me, I do want to push that gospel, the true gospel, which basically where it's welcoming, because it's not like God says he didn't come to condemn the world, you know, he came to save the world. So that's really what I'm trying to do. Like, if the pastor was to come and tell me, like, you need to stop doing this, you need to stop, I would literally be like, how? Like, let's try to equip people with the tools rather than just barking orders at them to do this, and that. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where my heart is like, bro, I got to give I have the tools, not because I'm great, but because God was able to bless me with it. And I want to utilize that to help people. So whatever it is, whatever podcast I'm on, whatever God has in store, I just move forward, bro. That's it.
Amazing. That's amazing. And what church do you go to at the moment?
So I go to a church in Temple City. Pastor was telling me that I gotta, like, screen people because, you know, it's just people rushing the doors and stuff like that. But it's that's happening.
Wow.
That's happened,
so now because, you know, you becoming more popular, people want to go to that church.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is good.
Nah, that's
kind of like there's also that that other side of, you know what I mean?
Understandable,
Right,
but
so-
but it's just, but look at where you leading people though.
Yeah, that's facts.
Come
bro.
on, man. Come on, bro. Like that's. Come on, man. You know, like that's amazing. That's amazing, man. You know, so I also wanted to say I saw you do like a little interview or collaboration with China Mac.
Yeah.
I interviewed, well, how was that, man? That
was
China
good.
Mac cool as hell, man.
Yeah, China Mac is family, bro. I was talking. I talk to him almost every day. But yeah, you know, he's a believer. He just doesn't really like practice, if you will. But you know, I got a lot of flack on that, you know, because people were like, "Yo, you're cussing." You know, like these other Christians were telling me, bro, you're cussing and this and that. But, you know, I always tell them, like, if you look at 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 22, it says, you know, we are all things to all men so that we can save some of them. You know, if I walk...
Preach it. Preach it. Come on, man. Give him them verses, Johnny. Get them.
Yeah, so if I walk up to China Mac and I say the right thing, you know, according to the Bible, and he says, you know, like if I say, hey, bro, you know what, you got to repent for your sins. I mean, that would be the right thing to say. You know, you got to turn to God, bro, and or else you're going to burn in hell. Like, do you really think, I think we're going to have to fight, bro, if I said something like that. You know? So what I do is I also gain the hearts of people. What Pastor has taught me, which is why I'm able to be the way that I am, is to gain people's hearts. Like being wrong is okay as long as you gain a person, because everybody is like so like bottled up. They're so like on their P's and Q's. They're so defensive about everything. And you can't fight that with just hammering at them. You know, you got to actually be able to gain them for them to see the pureness of your heart, and then they naturally will open up. So he's my bro, like for real. He hangs out with me, like we go out to eat, all that, pick him up, whatever. And it's like, how, bro? And we feel that peace amongst each other, whereas like other people, like he's just going at them, you know what I mean? So it's just, it's China Mac, bro. He's China Mac. But you know, shout out to him, and yeah, I just try to gain people's hearts, bro. That's what it comes down to.
Man, shout out to China Mac, man. One of the coolest dudes I ever sat down with, man. Let him know you was here, man, and everything. You know, so last question, John, you know, what is something that you would say to all the young men out there who is, you know, gangbanging like, you know, you once was, and didn't see an exit or way out? You know, they feel trapped, you know what I'm saying, and see gangbanging as the only way to go. You know, they don't have faith, they not in church or anything like that. What is something that you would say to them, you know, who want to change their life but have no idea how to?
I would say you gotta, the connection is very important. Who you're connected to is important, right? I'll use the analogy of like electricity. Say like we have a refrigerator, and if we plug the cord into the outlet, then the electricity will run. You know what I mean? And it'll run it, and it can, you know, refrigerate everything. But let's say like you don't have that electricity in this world, right? And you just, then it's just an expensive decoration. You understand? It's useless. So who we're connected to is very important. You know, if you're connected to a gang member, big homies, etc., and it's not no disrespect to them, but they themselves also can't really lead their own lives too. So the end result is going to be probably negative or a more miserable lifestyle. But if you're connected to people more like me, who's been through it, or, you know, a counselor, just anybody who's better than you in anything, it would actually, you would, like, them leading your life and them giving you advice and you heeding their advice will result in a better life, at least better than how you can lead it. You know, so I talk to them about that, you know, just like God, bro, like he has infinite power and electricity, you know, like electricity. But if you don't connect to him, then his power never becomes yours, and you have to find a way to then go through antidepressants, gangbanging, women, drugs, alcohol, to try and live this life that makes you produce your own happiness, basically. You know, so, you know, I want people to understand that the connection is very important, and we're not made to live alone. We have to be connected. We have to be, so whether it's with homies, whether it's with gangs, or whether it's anybody, you gotta find that mentor, like I did. You got to find that person who really has peace and hope. And that's why I still keep my DMs open. There's times where I put my number out there. It's not because like I'm trying to get paid or whatever. I do most of this stuff volunteer work. Prison stuff I do voluntarily, right? It's because I understand that they need this connection. And I want to be that line, because if I can't help, I also got pastors amongst me that can help. So, you know, once we do that, bro, one by one, when people learn, this world starts to heal and become a better place.
Yeah. Johnny, man, some of the best advice I've ever you know, heard, man, at this table, man. Wow. Dope. Definitely, man. So, you know, any shout outs or anything like that, you know, Johnny, before we get out of here and everything?
Yeah, shout out God.
Man, yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that. My God.
Yeah, shout out to you guys too, you know. Appreciate you guys for having me on, and
man,
appreciate you.
Man,
thank you, brother.
Man, appreciate Johnny for coming down, man. It's your boy Paul P. Johnny, Another Son Podcast. Love you all. We out of here. Deuces.